we're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, August 28th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Q.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Also, we have Minju with us today.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. We finally reached the end of the work week, and for many of us, Friday is a perfect time to put work aside and catch up with friends. Whether it's grabbing dinner, going for a drink, or simply sitting down and talking about everything that happened during the week, Fridays are often when we make time for the people we don't get to see every day. So Kyun, starting with you, how often do you usually see your friends these days?
To be honest, not very often these days. I wouldn't have like an impromptu meetup because it's a Friday night, or have a big night out planned out because the weekend is coming up. It's become quite the opposite these days because I like to just relax at home and take things easy and like kind of just wind down. Now I play soccer on every Sunday morning, early in the morning. So I actually have like I try not to have like a long Saturday night. Now on Sundays, I have work on Monday, so I don't want to, go out too hard as well on Sunday. So basically, I either have Friday or sometime during the weekday. But when I have work the next day, again, I try to take it easy because I'm not in my 20s anymore. So I've become a completely different person ever since I hit my, I guess, mid-30s. Whereas like when I was in my 20s, back when I was a Gen Z, like Minju, I would just try my best to meet my friends every time I could and just spend time with them because I thought that was like the best thing to do back then. But things change as you age.
I mean, it's also very professional of you to not do that.
Is it? Maybe it could be.
And it has become harder to, I think, meet out and hang out with friends after, even if it's a Friday, it's still a work day. It's not the easiest.
It's a little expensive as well.
And it's true. We will get to that a bit later. So what about you, Minju?
Yeah, I just learned professional mindset from Kyun. Anyways, personally, I think it really depends on my schedule, whether I meet my friends often or not. When I have more free time, I see my friends 2 or 3 days a week. But if my schedules are packed, I don't meet anyone for a while. So I didn't expect this to bring up in this episode about my MBTI is ISFP.
Oh, you're ISFP.
Yeah.
You're a bit of an introvert?
Yeah, and it is not a strict rule, but people with this type of personality, they stick to a very small circle of people, and I find that's very true for me as well. Even if I hang out with friends very often, I only hang out with the same friends in the same group. So I think that's how I usually meet up with my friends, maybe.
And I think I do recall you talking about specifically one friend.
Yeah,
so you like to keep your social circle small. So I mean, it's interesting because it shows that having a smaller social circle doesn't necessarily mean seeing your friends less. It can also mean investing more time in a few people you're genuinely comfortable with, genuinely share a bond with. And this seems to be the trend these days, apparently. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. No matter what stage of life you're in, friends are an essential part of our lives. They're the people we turn to for advice, support, and of course, a good time, which is why for many years, the more friends, the better. But the way people view friendship is changing. Today on News Generation, we're taking a closer look at how Gen Z's attitudes toward friendship are evolving, the challenges these changes may bring, and what friendship really means to us today. Just as we saw in a video, friendship is no longer necessarily about having as many friends as possible. Instead, people are becoming more selective about who they spend their time, money, and emotional energy on. But what has led to people becoming more selective about the friendships and the people they consider friends?
So you're definitely right. In the past, there was a widespread belief that it was better to have more friends. It was a way of kind of boasting how popular you were by having so many different friends. But these days, it's quite the opposite. More people are becoming very selective about their relationships and choosing how much time and energy they want to actually invest in them. Rather than trying to expand their social circles, people are increasingly focusing on maintaining relationships within that specific kind of circle where they can actually realistically afford in terms of time, money, and even emotional energy. And another notable trend is that when conflict arises with friends, many are actually more likely to just simply cut ties with their friends rather than actually work through the problem. So these days, it's just like instead of talking it out, they just walk out. And we're seeing this trend. I can't really personally relate to it right now, but then it is a trend among younger people, and I've seen it secondhand. And I'm like, wow, it's so easy to make friends, but at the same time, just lose friends.
I guess people's perspective of like or what they feel about friends has changed. So it seems that for many people, maintaining a friendship is no longer something they feel obligated to do at all costs. Instead, they're choosing relationships that fit their lives and letting go of those that feel too demanding or stressful. And this shift is also changing how people feel about being alone. So why is being alone no longer seen as something to be ashamed? Because like you mentioned before, it used to be something to be boastful of, having a lot of friends, but now there's less of that. So why is this the case?
Yeah, definitely. In the past, it was always the more the better, right? But these time, people often felt ashamed, I think, in the past because, it kind of made them like to be thought of others that they're antisocial or like they had some underlying issues regardless of like friendship relationships. But that's no longer the case these days. I think spending time alone has actually become a major trend, and there is an abundance of content online showcasing people enjoying their like single activities, solo activities maybe. And I believe this cultural shift is closely tied to a broader change in how we perceive those kind of solo activities. Maybe rather than posting daily vlogs of themselves out with friends, enjoying lavish meals or enjoying coffee chats with so many group of people, people today are much more enthusiastic about just showing their daily life of binge watching TV programs or just killing their time on their bed, right? So I think this kind of flood of this SNS maybe kind of helped public perception shifting a gear to these days how we are shifting how we are perceiving. So I think while being alone used to be viewed a pity or seen as a sign of loneliness, it's not widely regarded as admirable. I think lifestyle choice that allows you to truly focus on yourself.
So in the past, not having friends or spending time alone could be seen kind of almost embarrassing at times. But today, doing things alone is increasingly viewed as a way to enjoy your own company and focus on yourself, and even something worth sharing online. But there may be a more practical reason behind these changing attitudes toward friendship. So Kim, you kind of mentioned this earlier about how the price of just meeting people is not small anymore. So has the rising cost of living affected friendships as well?
Definitely. On one side, it could kind of sound like an excuse not to meet friends, but many experts actually point to rising living prices as one reason friendships are becoming, I guess, more expensive to maintain. The trend has even given rise to a new term, friendflation, believe it or not, referring to the growing cost of socializing with friends. Now, if you take a look at the screen, in a survey of Gen Z conducted by a Korean part-time job portal, 93% of respondents actually said they felt financially burdened by the cost of meeting friends, while 89% said they had cut back on how often they socialize. And as meetups become less frequent, 65%, as you can see on the screen right now, of Gen Z respondents said they do not see their friends even once a week. While only 13% said they meet their friends once a week, only 22% said twice a week, which is an overall contrast from the past. Especially for me, when I was a Gen Z, I would have to see my friends as many times as I possibly could. And the trend is not limited to just Korea. A British newspaper has also reported on the rising cost of maintaining friendships, while a US survey found that 80% of respondents feel some degree of financial pressure when spending time with their friends.
I mean, the fact that we now even have a term like friendflation shows how much money has become part of the friendship equation. And money isn't the only thing changing the way we maintain relationships. Technology and individualism may also be making it easier to walk away. So how has social media impacted our relationships and the way we view friendships, Minju?
Yeah, the growth of, digital world maybe and growing individualism are definitely major factors that we are experiencing these days. In the past, human relationships were more centered around offline communities like neighborhoods, schools, or workplaces. Because of this, it was very difficult to simply just cut off with someone within that tight-knit circle and very close circle. But however, as society leans towards more individualism and relationships become more fragmented online, people no longer feel the need to maintain, connections that cause stress or even emotional drains. So if you take a look at our screen here, a recent survey in the U.S. revealed that 60% of Gen Z respondents have intentionally cut ties with someone, and while millennials had 50% and Gen X was actually 38%. So this is a significantly higher figure if you compare it with the other generations. So I think this is kind of a very notable trend that we are seeing these days.
Right. So in the past, friendships were often tied to physical communities like school, work, or the neighborhood. So ending a relationship could affect your entire social circle. But today, with so many relationships existing online, it may feel much more easier to simply stop responding and move on if something doesn't fit your life or your lifestyle. So we also want to hear from our viewers. So we've asked on the Editing News YouTube channel, if you don't meet up with friends often, what's the main reason? So here's what the results showed. So the biggest reason was emotional exhaustion, with 40% of respondents saying they simply don't want the emotional drain that can come with socializing. Another 33% said they have plenty of other things to enjoy, while 27% said meeting friends is simply too expensive. So judging by the results, for many of our viewers, it seems that friendship isn't necessarily about having more or fewer friends, about deciding where their time, energy, and money are worth spending on, which is relatable and what we've been talking about. And also to get a Gen Z perspective on how friendship is changing, we're going to speak with a special guest from the US. And that conversation is coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out Channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
We're joined now by India, a Gen Z guest from the US. So hello, India. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, hello.
Good to have you. India, so how are people in the US redefining who they consider close friends, or how they even define close friends, and what does your social circle look like?
In America, being self-sufficient and having your personal time is very, very important. So when people are seeking platonic friendships, it's you don't want to bother someone or you don't want someone to bother you. So friendships have started from being big to slowly becoming like 2 to 3 close people that you know. And for my social group, I'm an extrovert. So if I go out, I possibly know someone or I'll get to know someone at an event, but I usually talk to 3 people within my close circle. But these 3 people, they don't know each other. These are different people who I've met within my life and who I've built emotional trust with.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, India, why do you think young Americans are choosing smaller social circles?
Smaller social circles are more manageable. A lot of the times, I felt having a big circle was emotionally and financially taxing to maintain. In a large circle, there's always a birthday party, a dinner, a trip. Something is always going on, and it adds up. And I'm like, I don't have any more money left to do what I want to do. I'm just like, oh no, how can I survive? What can I do? Having a big circle right now is being marketed as like being popular. So even though you're popular externally, internally, people are not finding validations from these large circles. Also, with being Gen X, we have a thing called the Gen X stare. So if we don't like someone, you can tell on our face that we're not going to try to maintain this relationship. We're not going to try to maintain an interaction. So it kind of makes it easier to have a smaller circle of friends if already emotionally, physically, you're showing that you don't want to maintain this at all.
Yeah, I see, and that's exactly what we've been talking about for a while. Our last question for you today is: how has the perception of people with few friends has changed these days?
The perception has changed for the better. A couple 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people who were seen having few friends were portrayed as being unpopular or would be outcasted. Especially in your early 20s, it's normal to socialize. And if you don't socialize with others in your group, you kind of miss out on potential bonding opportunities with others. Being unpopular isn't a bad thing, to be honest. I believe people who have fewer friends are often misunderstood because they value an intimate and close connection rather than having to maintain a social connection.
I think that's really well said, and I'm sure your friends really appreciate you as well. 'Cause you have great energy, I can tell. So I hope
you.
you get time to spend more time with your friends from the show. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice
you.
Friday.
Thank
You
you.
too.
So we just heard from a young person from the US about how Americans are redefining who they consider close friends, why young Americans are choosing smaller social circles, and how perceptions of people with few friends are changing. But while being selective about friendships can help us protect our time and energy, there could also be a downside to having fewer relationships. So then what problems could come from having fewer, more distant friendships?
Again, according to some experts, they warn that if people become too reliant on fragmented online connections or relationships that can be easily cut off, it could have negative effects in the long run, both on their ability to maintain meaningful, strong relationships and on their emotional well-being as well. So they recommend setting healthy boundaries while still making an effort to communicate and stay engaged in relationships, even when that sometimes feels uncomfortable.
So as we heard, relationships that are mostly online or easy to cut off may make it hard to build meaningful long-term connections. Experts say it's important to set healthy boundaries, but also be willing to communicate and work through uncomfortable moments when a relationship is really worth maintaining. And the impact may go beyond our individual friendships and affect how we connect with society as a whole. So is it possible that having fewer social connections could affect our social skills and maybe even lead to isolation, Manju?
Definitely, as this kind of trend grows, it becomes much easier for people to fall into social isolation, I think. Also, we, naturally build social skills by interacting with others, and a lack of connection will inevitably cause those skills to decline. In fact, a survey result from 2,000 Americans has provided that 47% of respondents answered that they are recently feeling isolated, while 34% responded that they feel more disconnected with the society compared to like 5 years ago, maybe. So at the end of the day, human beings are social creatures, and we all live in a society. So these kind of social skills or network skills, they are still a necessity. So I think it might be kind of a problem, but so we have to really think about it, I think.
So if we become too accustomed to keeping relationships at a distance, we may also become more socially isolated. So building relationships is one of the ways we develop communication and social skills, and those skills remain important because we all have to function within a wider society. So we took a look at how friendship is changing. Perhaps the bigger question is, what actually makes someone a friend in the first place for all of us? So after today's discussion, to you, how do you define what a good friend is to you, and what kind of friend do you want to be?
You know the saying, a friend in need is a friend indeed. So I think if your friend can kind of stay by your side through the tough times, I think that defines what a true friendship is. Now, I think one-dimensionally speaking, it could be, I guess, for example, lending money, but from personal experience, I don't think that's a good way to show friendship by lending your money, because it usually ends up very messy. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think for me, it's like a more mature way to define friendship will be to stick around with that person, especially when they're going through hard times. Just being next to them, being with them, and being very supportive emotionally, and just showing up at important times, because it already shows that once you're there physically, it means that you're already not sacrificing, you're giving your time, effort, emotions, or it could be even money, a small portion of money, which is something that many younger people kind of, turn away from because they're so accustomed to the online world where they can meet plenty of people easily.
Right.
So I think being there physically and just when your friend actually really needs you, defines what a true friendship is, at least for me.
So like you said, I think it's harder these days to find people that are truly interested and invested in you. So I
Right.
think that's a good rule of thumb. What about you? How would you define a friend?
Yeah, I completely agree with Kiyu. Sometimes just being physical with your friend, that's just everything you need from your friend, right? My definition of friends, actually, for a while, been people I can hang out with without any calculations, or where I can just open up and be completely myself, maybe. Friends are those, I can spend time without being guarded also and keeping score. So more often than not, I think when you are with people, there are so many things that you have to really take care of, and you have to worry about what they might think if you do this or that. Being mindful is important, of course, but I think having those concerns isn't necessarily a bad thing. But just personally, me put in those kind of situations just makes me so exhausted, and I don't really want to put myself in those situations. So I think I prefer meeting my friends in those close groups. And so in return, I want to be a friend mostly available for that small circle and someone whose company is truly worth their time, maybe.
Right, like you said, I think it's truly almost therapeutic to be able to spend time with people where you just are comfortable being around, you can be yourself. So that's, I guess, why it's good to have those friends around you.
Yeah.
Right, so friendship may look different today, but the need for meaningful connections hasn't changed. Maybe having a few people who make our lives better is more valuable than having a long list of friends. And in the end, the best friendships may simply be the ones that feel worth making time for. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation, but News Gen will be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. Big thanks to Ki-hoon.
It's always a pleasure.
And also Moonju.
Thanks for having me today.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully your friend list is short, but your desire to cancel plans is even shorter this weekend. We are
News Generation.